You have to be out of the system at this point. If you are not, if you are in the system and you are entrenched in dollars and in the system, the central banks that are continuing to go on a gold buying spree, they see what is coming. And yesterday morning in Shanghai, when the market opened up, $112 an ounce higher premium gold spot than in the West. They understand what is coming. They are trying to siphon all of the gold, all of it, out of the West and move it towards China. You have to do what the biggest, most well-funded but well-informed investors on the planet are doing, and that is continuing to accumulate.
About a week ago, the World Gold Council released a report on central banks' gold purchases in August 2023. According to the report, central banks collectively increased their gold reserves in August for the third consecutive month, adding 77 tons to global reserves, a 38% increase compared to July figures. The report also revealed that central banks purchased 219 tons of gold between June and August 2023. The People's Bank of China led the pack in gold demand, adding another 29 tons in August, which brings its year-to-date net purchases to 155 tons, and its total buying since last November to 217 tons. As of the end of August 2023, China's gold holdings totaled 2,165 tons, or just over 4% of its total reserves. According to Andy Schectman, the president of Minnesota-based bullion dealer Miles Franklin Precious Metals, the activities of central banks, which he describes as some of the world's most informed and well-funded investors, is more than enough motivation to keep stacking more gold and silver without too much consideration for current price levels. Andy, along with many other gold bulls, have been warning about what's coming for years, and with every new piece of information, it seems we are drawing closer and closer to the endgame. Andy believes we don't have every piece of the puzzle yet, but central banks do. They are obviously front-running a coming huge crisis by piling up as many tons of gold and silver as they can after decades of almost completely abandoning both assets. Whatever this huge crisis will be, Andy believes it will begin with the global banking industry and slowly sweep its way through every other sector until there is nothing left on its part, of course, with the exception of assets like physical gold and silver, which have 0% counterparty risks. We will now bring you clips from Andy's latest interview with Liberty and Finance. Please watch, share, and like this video. Also, ensure you subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications, and drop your comments and observations in the comments section. Thanks, and enjoy the video.
I was on a walk this morning, and I see two people with my dogs, and I see two people that I know from the neighborhood, and they say the same thing. It's like every single day there's something. Never was that way. Let's just look at a couple of the things that are lying underneath the surface. As of June 30th, there are 4,645 institutions, banks, that have over $7 trillion in uninsured deposits here in the United States, whether there's savings and loans or credit unions or whatnot. 7.134 trillion in uninsured deposits. Just the four big commercial banks, JP Morgan, Citibank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, those four banks alone have 59% of the uninsured deposits, are over $4.185 trillion. You think there's a problem brewing under the surface? I would say yes. How about the fact that the bond market is getting clobbered, that the 10-year Treasury will go down as one of the worst, if not the worst, bloodbaths in bond market history? It's down over almost 50% just since March of 2020, and rates are still rising. You got Rick Santelli on CNBC, who's not a right-leaning guy. He's very moderate. In fact, I like him a lot. I've met him a few times. Smart dude. He's saying 10-year Treasury could go to 16% by his calculation, by his charts. I mean, really? What happens when you have 18, 20, 21% mortgages? What happens? Don't know. How about the fact that the U.S. has come closest to defaulting, maybe the closest they've come to defaulting in decades or in ever on their debt? And again, kicking the can down the road further and further, or the fact that we remove a Speaker of the House for the first time in history, or now this awful war, the second war that we're now involved in Israel and with Palestinians. I mean, it's breaking out, and the U.S. is now sending aircraft carriers and airplanes to defend Israel? How about the fact that the mortgage rates have hit the highest level since 2000? How about what happened in Hawaii or what happened in Ohio, East Palestine, Ohio? How about OPEC with their voluntary production cuts, more and more and more production cuts, and oil at the highest level ever. It's since over $95 a barrel, highest level in quite some time. On top of that, household debt, mortgages, auto loans, all record high, record student debt, which is our biggest asset of this country, $1 trillion in credit card debt. Look, everywhere you look. Or how about the fact that in the last 18 days, $444 billion was added to the national debt? It took us till 1975 to accumulate our first $500 billion in debt. We did it in the last 18 days. So when you talk about things spinning out of control, and again, they are. And I don't know where the next point is that breaks, but if you're just focused on one simple thing, or you just think that everything will be okay, you're not paying attention. And I think this is the time to really start to, as your old YouTube channel said, reluctantly prepare. You have to be out of the system at this point. If you are not, if you are in the system and you are entrenched in dollars and in the system, you're in big trouble. There is no safety anymore. You purchased another 77 tons in August. It's a 38% increase over July. Over and over and over again, we keep saying the biggest money in the world is doing this. And I think that if you are not a contrarian, as our friend Rick Rule says, you're bound to be a victim. This is time to start reevaluating. Even the best laid plans sometimes need to be reevaluated, and this is one of those sometimes.
A few months ago, Lisa Chalette, Chief Investment Officer for Morgan Stanley Wealth Management, said there is a big hurdle ahead for commercial real estate, particularly office properties that have seen rising vacancy rates and falling property values since the pandemic. The sector also faces a wave of loan maturities from 2024, which property owners have started bemoaning as a result of stricter lending standards. Chalette further warned that the U.S. banking industry is heading for an increase in delinquencies and defaults. She wrote, "More than 50% of the $2.9 trillion in commercial mortgages will need to be renegotiated in the next 24 months, when new lending rates are likely to be up by 350 to 450 basis points. That's why we are forecasting a peak-to-trough commercial real estate price decline of as much as 40%, worse than in the Great Financial Crisis." But perhaps the most dire and concerning part of Chalette's warning is how much the fallout will affect every sector of the economy. According to the Morgan Stanley chief analyst, no sector will be immune to the fallout that will occur from these expected defaults and delinquencies. It will go beyond landlords and banks. This is exactly why gold bugs like Andy are more persistent in their warning about buying gold and silver now before it's too late to do so. Let's get back to the interview.
Gold and silver represent more than just wealth. They represent the antithesis to the Western system, the frailty of the system. But the big money, the sophisticated money, the central banks, the commercial banks, they understand what it truly is. It is wealth. But because, as I've shared with you and your audience before, when I started this company, my father told me I'll buy some gold and silver every 2 weeks. It's the only rule that I have to follow. 33 years ago when we started this company, and I told you that I've honored that promise to him, even though I own the company, I've honored that promise and have purchased every 2 weeks for 33 years. I've never missed a 2-week period. To me, it is wealth. It's not an investment. And yes, I'm very hyper aware of its ups and downs, but it doesn't bother me because to me, it is my wealth. And when I take a step back and look at the risk involved in owning dollar-based assets at this stage of the game, bottom of the ninth inning, maybe in a Keynesian system that has failed and is now being exposed, and we can see the transition to one based moving away from debt instruments and promises to commodities and hard assets and transparency, it becomes very easy for me to feel comfortable with these ups and downs, to look at the downs as the stupidity of the West giving me and the East a subsidy to accumulate real wealth. That's the way you need to look at it. It's not an investment. It is wealth. And in times like we face right now, where all the things I just mentioned spinning faster and faster, one of them is going to break. Don't know which one. Probably one that we're not even thinking about. And when that happens, there's no time to blow up your life raft. You're in the water already. And I say this stuff, and I hate being pessimistic about the future. There's a fine line between pessimism and realism, but it's time to put on our big boy pants and realize that the world is moving in a direction that is rather different from what we've experienced over the last 20, 30 years. I mean, there's been chaos forever, right? I'm not naive to say that every generation doesn't have their own chaos, but this one seems a little bit more acute, a little bit more accelerated, and a little bit different, at least anything that I've experienced in my 53 years. So yeah, I think it's never been more important to accumulate metal right now, because I don't know where else to put your money that gives you liquidity, safety, flexibility, and the ability to pick it up and go if you have to, wherever that go may be. But to me, I take great comfort in it, and I hope one or two people out there who are listening to this do. And I'm not talking my book. I'm trying to be as sincere as I can as a father of 3 kids. I think it's time for people to wake up that things are going to start to get worse before they get better. And we haven't even seen the problems with the banks yet. Wait, before the end of the year. I think the nastiest buzz phrase that we will all grow to hate over the next several months or years will be counterparty risk. The ability to remove that counterparty risk is something that I find very valuable about gold and silver, as Doug Casey has made famous, is saying gold and silver are assets that are not simultaneously someone else's liability. This will become a big problem as the economy gets worse and things get worse. People will not be able to service and or uphold their end of the bargain. So yeah, I think it's never been more important done again this week.
Billionaire hedge fund manager Paul Tudor Jones recently discussed the impact of global geopolitical conflicts on markets in an interview with CNBC. The 69-year-old investor warned that we now have possibly 3 theaters where we're going to have geopolitical challenges: the Middle East and Israel, Ukraine and Russia, and then at some point down the road, Taiwan and China. According to the Tudor investment founder, this might be the most threatening and challenging geopolitical environment he's ever seen. And it is also happening at the time the U.S. is in its weakest fiscal position since the Second World War. Jones also told the interviewer that he likes gold and believes it should take a larger percentage of your portfolio now than at other times in history because of the present economic situation in the United States and the worsening geopolitical situation. Unlike Andy, Jones is not a bullion dealer, so we cannot say that he is only saying this to drive sales. We are in very uncertain times, and the best bet is probably to invest in assets that have lived through and survived similar periods in the past. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. Should you be stacking in preparation, or are you still in the camp that all's right with the world? Please drop your comments and observations in the comments section. Also, ensure you like this video. Subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications for more videos. Thanks for watching.